warriors dance in a masquerade of death.
My father's killer, so we meet again.
Welcome. I'm Force of Nature, and this is Top Tier Tips. In this session, we're going to be taking a look at the Azure Nightmare.
Your nightmare has begun!
Nightmare is the demonic wielder of Soul Edge, and he's forever Siegfried's rival. Even when Nightmare is Siegfried, Siegfried still hates him. Alright, so I'll just let you know right now that Nightmare is kind of a case of what you see is what you get. You have a big demonic looking dude with a giant sword like so, and essentially what do you do with Nightmare? You swing around said sword and just smack people for like gigantic damage. However, there's a catch to this. A lot of Nightmare's moves are very slow and very like unsafe on block. Like something even simple like BB. Like this move is like what? Like almost like it's over like 25 frames. Like it's a really slow move. It's really slow. It can be like sidestepped like fairly easily, even though I know that you can just simply do like a single B. Also moves like 3B for instance. Like this move is also well over 20 frames and it's pretty unsafe on block. I mean, yeah, these moves run up the guard gauge quite well, but if these moves get blocked, then you can get punished pretty easily. Fortunately, Nightmare actually does have quite a bit of moves that are also safe on block to help him out. Stuff like 668 plus B. Let's see. Well, either AGA or like ABA. Like those moves are also safe on block. So alright. For Nightmare, and also stuff like 668A, generally what you want to do with Nightmare is try and get moves blocked around maybe like kind of like tip ranges. Even something like, let's say, 236B, you see it kind of pushes back quite a lot. So even if moves are on paper unsafe on block, then, I mean, if moves have like enough pushback, then it can be like a little tougher for the opponent to like try and punish it for instance. With regards to how to fight with Nightmare, what I'm going to say right now is just avoid close range. Just stay out of there. I mean, all you're going to really do is just kind of like punch opponents in really. So like Nightmare does, or like shoulder them. Nightmare doesn't really like fighting close, so don't fight in close if you can avoid it, unless of course you have the advantage. Fight around mid-range to long range. Nightmare loves being in mid-range, long range. So basically, if you can whack people with like an AGA, or if you're in range of like your 668, then that's good for then that's a good range for Nightmare, because his moves are usually quite good at kind of just like knocking the opponent away, or launching them or anything like that. So for pokes you can use, I mean, aside from like AGA or ABA, as you can guess, those are pretty key moves with Nightmare. You can, for a mid-hidden poke, you can use 3A. So right here, or down forward A. So right here you can just do a single 3A and that's fine. You also have stuff like 3AK. So the second hit is a high hit. It's that punch there. It's a high hit. It's advantage on if it gets blocked, and it's a hit throw when it connects, so it's a good move. So the opponent can crouch it. And I mean, they could try and sidestep, but that's risky because there's 3AA, which is the only actual unsafe option from the 3A string. And there's also 3AB, which is also safe on block, but it's a linear vertical move, so 3AB. If this move does actually manage to connect, then you can end up hitting 2A plus B to go into Nightmare's special meter stance called Terror Charge, which I'll end up going over later. But yeah, but with this move though, you can kind of mix up between all three of those options just to keep the opponent off balance. And if you want to go safe, just do the 3A. Nightmare also has various stances that he can transition into. Before I go on, I would like to thank Smart Esports and Trollcoin for endorsing this video. And as always, if you like this video, smash that like button. If you didn't like this video, just hit the like button anyway, and don't forget to subscribe for more juicy fighting game content. I'd also like to take this moment to thank my premium top tier fighters for their continued support, which I do appreciate. If you'd like to become a premium top tier fighter yourself, click on the Patreon link down below. Alright, I'm just going to answer the elephant in the room right now. What the hell is AGA or ABA, and how do you do it? AGA and ABA are Nightmare's, well, basically his fast, go-to high horizontal attacks. These moves, as I mentioned earlier, are safe on block, so if the opponent's blocking it, you can't really be punished. The only concern is that it's a high, and it's basically Nightmare's fastest, well, horizontal move. I mean, like, he has fast, like linear moves also, but generally this one has like good range, so you can use these sort of mid-range, no problem, and they do have the capability to bring the opponent out if need be. To input AGA or ABA, you simply just do what it says. So AGA or ABA. But as you see right there, I just simply press each button individually, and then you just get like random moves. In order to actually do AGA, you have to do this one motion, like so. And yeah, if you hold down the A too much, it looks like that. So you see AGA and A. Alright, that was AB, ABA, like so. I'll also let you know there's actually a short form to do that. That's just literally doing A, B, then A. So let's say, for instance, you want to do AGA. What I actually do is right here. So A, this is my throw button. This is A plus G. If you just simply do A plus G, it works. If you want an easy AGA, literally just do this. Just A, then A, and A plus G. Same thing with ABA, for instance. Same thing. Just A plus B. This is my A plus B. It's your break attack button. So A plus B, A plus B, A plus B. So right now, essentially, if you just want to do the move normally, then just do it that way. Just simply do the A, then either A plus G or A plus B. However, there's a really difficult version of both of these moves, which is the AGA or ABA just frame. I'll also let you know that it is tremendously like difficult to do. I mean, doing the A plus G version or the A plus B version it makes it even kind of like hard to do. I'll just let you know right now, I'm a pad warrior, so I'm doing on A. I have an A, and then I have a macro button. So A, macro button. So with mine, it's basically just like I do it like double tap version, like double tap, double tap, double tap, double tap. So to do the AGA, like the just frame, I don't even know if I could even really get it because it's just tremendously difficult to do. Like it's a very tight kind of just frame like move, so you have to do it the double slide motion. So it's literally AGA. Alright, a little tip that you can do is do A, G, then have like another A. Like you can even use your throw button as that other one. So right now, so let's say you do A, G, then my throw button's on, well right now it's on L1. So right here, I do it same way, and you get like, kind of tap-in motion. Let me show you my controls. Alright, right now I have A set to square, I have guard set to X or cross, and I have A plus G, so my throw button is on L1, and my A plus B, my break attack button's on R1. You can also use shoulder buttons such as like L2 or R2. So what this is essentially what's recommended is that you have your A button, you have a guard button, then you have a second button that you can use for basically the second A, so the third input. You can either use A plus G for, of course, for AGA, and A plus B for ABA. I use L1 and R1 because I just don't like the way how L2 or R2 trigger for fighting games in, well, basically on the PS4 controller, because it just has this weird amount of pressure. Like, it's just basically not designed for like a single click kind of thing compared to like L1 or R1 where you just tap it and you're good to go. So I'll show you, for instance, it basically looks like that. Alright, to get the actual AGA input, it's just you have to input it like just ridiculously fast. You know what? will show you, link you to a tutorial that can kind of show you how to do this. I just recommend if you have either a fight stick or like basically a fight stick, arcade stick, hitbox, like cross up, whatever, then I recommend using that if you're planning to play Nightmare with the intent of trying to be able to do AGA consistently. As you can see, the AGA just frame can come out a bit easier if you buffer it. If you buffer it with the initial move, for instance, like with 236B. But yeah, the just frame version of this move can be like tremendously like difficult to be able to like do like consistently. I'll just make you feel a little better now that both the just frame version and just the normal version of this move, whether you do AGA or for instance ABA, are both the same speed. The only difference really with those is like deciding off the opponent. They're both 16 frames. They're both actually neutral on block. If you can get it around like, alright, if you can get the just frame version around tip range, then you'll be around maybe +1. But for all intents and purposes, you're 0 on block, and I know with 0 on block with Nightmare, might as well be disadvantaged if you're facing someone like Cassandra or Taki or like Zhanghua or all those people that can like mash BB or like AA in your face. But still, the main thing about this move, though, is that whether you do like the just frame version or not, it's not really like a huge deal to your gameplay. Alright, I'll say right now, the number one reason to do the just frame version would be for you get the additional damage, for instance. But if you can do it consistently, of course, more power to you. In close range with Nightmare, your objective is to basically just, well, get out. Like, you don't want to be in close range. So what you want to do is either try and like stuff the opponent or just simply like get him out of your face. Though it's SoulCalibur, so close range combat's gonna happen anyway. So there are some tools to help you out in close range. All right, Nightmare's fastest move from neutral is his K. All right, Nightmare does not have a 12-frame attack from neutral, so his K is 13 frames, and this is actually a pretty good move. So right here, it deals 18 damage, creates some space. If it were to connect, for instance, on counter hit, that ends up knocking the opponent down. Alright, so when you end up like, knocking the opponent down, you can get in that free like down kick or even like do like 2A plus B, 3Bs. So basically you can get in like a free like follow-up attack after that if K ends up hitting on counter hit. So I mean so it's a decent move in respect, but of course with Nightmare's frames and speed, it doesn't really work that well in close. Like the thing about Nightmare is a lot of his speed looks good because the fact is that it's simply certain things like AGA or ABA are like relatively fast moves, and Nightmare's movement speed is pretty fast. Like he has like basically faster speed than any of the other kind of like heavyweight like characters, so it does create the illusion that Nightmare is probably a bit faster than he is. But yeah, in close range, he's like this again. He doesn't really have the best frames. So some tools to be able to help you out in close ranges along with the K, you also have 3K. This right here is a 14-frame mid-kick. See right here, it's a good kind of poke, so you have your K, your 3K. Alright, to complement 3K, so this is your mid-poke. Your complement to this will be 2K. So this right here is a 15-frame low kick. It is negative on normal hit like most lows, so you can't, fortunately, spam it. So you can just do it once and maybe you press it once and try and backdash into like a basically or a side step depending on the opponent's reaction. So what you want to do is like backdash, and now right now you're basically in mid range, and then you have your AGA. So right here, if you end up like poking the opponent with that, if you think they're gonna do a quick poke or a quick retaliation, then you can like kind of like backdash away, or you can end up sidestepping. But yeah, again, when you're in close, so the kind of moves you're gonna be using is like in general, it's gonna be K, 3K, 2K, or 6K. This one's a 15-frame. It's a 15-frame mid, so a 15-frame linear kick or poke or shoulder, and it goes into Nightmare's quarter circle forward stance. This is Grim Stride. So I'll go over the stances a little later, but yeah. But this is kind of a. It's like a pseudo approach tool with Nightmare. I mean, like, well, the thing generally about Nightmare is well, in general, you're not usually going to be like necessarily approaching your opponent that much because you can poke from pretty far away. But let's say for instance, if you hit the opponent with 6K, if you hit the opponent with that, then you press forward. Then for instance, you'll go into the Grim Stride, and there's like come on, you go into the Grim Stride, and there's like different moves out of there. There's like the K option, the B option, and the A option, which is actually pretty good. Since Nightmare's frames in close suck, some moves that he can use to end up helping him out, if you need to basically just get someone off you, is any variation of this move right here. This is 6A plus B. This is a Soul Wave. As you see right here, this move, what it does is it absorbs any of your opponent's like kind of quick pokes, like a typical kind of like AA or like BB. Alright, well, Nightmare's B, of course, is stronger than most Bs. But let's say a typical 12-frame BB from like a Sofitia or like a Taki or whatever. So typical kind of 14-frame BB or typical kind of 12-frame AA. Usually, the Soul Wave will beat it out. Any move that does like 20 damage or less will generally lose to it. So any kind of standing move. So that's like high moves or mid moves. The moves that you'll use to beat out the Soul Wave are lows, powerful strikes that will deal at least 21 damage or more, I think, around that much, or also, well, throws. The Soul Wave Revenge mechanic is actually attached to a few moves, usually with the 4 input or 6 inputs, such as 6AA, 6BB, or 6K. Alright, so 6AA, which can just be held for 6A, which is actually a good go-to because the opponent could generally easily duck the second hit, then just punish you for that. So just do the first hit, hold it down, and go 6A. So this move here is it's a really good range. It's a really good range, track and high. If the second hit does get blocked, you'll actually be at +2. Even though, I mean, like, anyone that's paying attention will just crouch under it. But if it does get blocked, you're +2, which is good, so you can end up pushing more buttons after that. Alright, with 6B, this one is unsafe on block. But it is your it's your go-to revenge attack move that's a mid. The opponent avoids this by, well, sidestepping since it's a thrust move. It does have good range, and for instance, under Soul Charge, or I'll say right now under Terror Charge, this does a tremendous amount of damage. Your fast option now, I mean, so you got your A or B, will be 6k. So this right here is your 16 frame punch to the face. You have your 13 frame punch to the face, and then your 16 frame punch to the face. Generally, if you need speed, you'll just do a normal K or 5k. But if you do 6k, if you also want, you give speed, plus you have the revenge mechanic. Similar to 6B or 6BB, this move is actually unsafe on block. So it's not safe like a normal K or anything like that. But this move is usually going to be used as an intercept. So either just by sheer speed, like 16 frames, so let's say if the opponent ends up doing something like negative on your block or whatever, and they try and push buttons, you just punch them in the face. Or if you end up doing something that's not really too like negative on the block or something, and then let's say for instance you end up doing like a let's say if you even like do like a 236 like I don't know like a 236B on block, then you can maybe try and do like a 6k basically, or even like if you just do like an AA or something, then you can try, which is, I'll let you know, is safe on block mid. Then you can try and intercept your opponent with this. So obviously, if you're at negative frames, then what's going to happen is you're trying to activate the revenge mechanic, and then they'll put you into your terror charge. But if you end up beating on the move outright, that's some good also. With regards to terror charge, I'll just tell you right now, what this mode does is it allows one free soul charge attack. Alright, I'll go over the soul attack moves later because there's like quite a bit of them. But I'll just let you know with regards to Soul Charge that Nightmare's 6BBB is just really good. I already told you. I mean, it's just a tremendous amount of damage for like a good range, well, a relatively long range whiff Punisher. With regards to Soul Terror Charge, anytime you end up doing like any sort of Soul Wave moves like this, so it means that using any of the 6 moves or any... Then you'll end up, if you end up absorbing an opponent's attack, then you'll get your Terror Charge. You also can get it off of like 2A plus B. You can even do it on a standing opponent, but it's commonly used on like a downed opponent. So even like a 6-6B right here, you launch the opponent, then you get like a free 2A plus B. You can also get this off of, let's say for instance, moves like 236 KK under Terror Charge, and then you can basically kind of like keep doing it. I mean, if the opponent gets hit by it, of course, but that's basically the way how you end up like keeping your terror charge going. Alright, I won't go over Nightmare's soul attack moves right now. I'll go over that a bit later because Nightmare has a lot of soul attack moves. I'll just let you know right now that if you're fighting around mid-range or longer, your 6BBB is such a good whiff Punisher, so that's always a good move to keep on hand and for the opponent to be afraid of. Look at this, it's basically like a large bread and butter combo in itself. Other good moves can include like 6-6KK. So whether it gets blocked or hit is good. So if it ends up hitting, then you can end up getting a Grim. You can end up getting, for instance, a Grim Stride combo. So it's 6-6K. In K, you see it stuns the opponent right there. If it gets blocked, then it's an advantage on block. So it is a pretty good move. There's other moves like from Knight behind stance. There's like A plus B. So right there can be like a pretty dangerous move if the opponent's like off balance or anything like that. And a move I like using occasionally in Oki if the opponent's not really side rolling too much or trying to tech roll away from it or anything is quarter circle forward A plus B under Terror Charge. Does it does a lot of damage and gets a move which can be a little tricky to tech away. A combo that can be hard to tech away with a A plus B follow up afterwards. And also, it does like a tremendous amount of like chip damage, which I ended up showing you earlier in a sample combo. So like, that's other like a devious move that you can use. But yeah, all right. One last thing, though, with regards to Terror Charge. All right, you'll see how there's a little sword icon below Nightmare's name. You see how it lit up now? This is basically lets you know when you have your Terror Charge meter available. Naturally, a big part of Nightmare's game plan is trying to get maintain or just simply gain Terror Charge as much as possible. So if you have any safe, like let's say after a big knockdown or something, if you have any opportunities to go for like a Soul Wave, so 6A plus B to get your Terror Charge, I mean like go for it. Being under Terror Charge essentially allows Nightmare to play more of a. You can go for an aggressive playstyle if you want. I mean like 6-6K is a really good move with Nightmare, and 6-6KK is nice. Also, if you end up doing the drill move on an opponent's block, it does like a tremendous amount of chip damage, and it is actually a break attack. See, normally the move would be unsafe if you just do like the first 2 hits and it gets blocked, but the Soul Charge or Terror Charge version is a really powerful break attack. So if that move hits or gets blocked, it's just tremendously good. From mid-range to long-range, Nightmare is a lot more comfortable. Alright, just to let you know right now, a good poke that you can end up using with Nightmare from around this range is from his Night Low stance. So you input B plus K, the B move. See right here, when it connects the opponent, it's it's a hit throw. If you can get it from further out, so tip range, it's just a poke. Alright, this move comes out in 15 frames. It's only -10 on blocks, so you're pretty much safe from punishment because I-10 moves or 10 frame moves aren't exactly the standard in SoulCalibur 6, and if you do it from like tip range, then again, if you do your moves from tip range, then it's usually hard for the opponent to try and punish you like anyway. So yeah, this move is like really good. If you hold it down, so from here, you end up going to Nightmare's, just simply called behind stance, and Nightmare moves really slowly. So out of here, you have your you can do 2 kicks. You have an A option, which is like a low, and then out of this stance, there's also like a B option. But I'll go over like stance stuff, like maybe specific stance stuff a little later. But yeah, just right now, just to let you know that B plus K B is such an amazing poke. I actually recommend it. As tempting as it is to transition into Night behind stance, yeah, I know the names are kind of weird. It's actually better to just simply do this. So, I mean, whether you hit it tip range, if you're hitting close, it's good. Because you're in a crouching stance, it's a high crush move, so that means that it beats out highs, it goes under highs. To go along with B plus K B or Night Low Stance B, you also have 3A. So, I already showed you like some stuff with this move. In general, you're just going to do 3A. So, if you're certain you're going to either interrupt something or whip punish something, then go for 3A. So right here, this is your double mid. This is what keeps the opponent from, crouching after the first hit. Even though, if they block it, you are 20 frame, I think you're minus 20, so you can be launch punished like pretty easily by most characters with their 3B. Nightmare's 3B is actually too slow, but someone, let's say like a Geralt or like a Sophitia or like a Zhangma, like anyone with a 20 frame 3B can launch you for free if 3AA gets blocked. So that's the unsafe option. The advantage option is 3AK. So what you have to do is you have to like kind of mix that in. So sometimes you just do 3A, sometimes you do 3AK, and then now this is a new thing to Season 2, 3AB. So now you have a move that the opponent basically can't crouch and is safe on block too, so they specifically have to sidestep that in order to beat it out. And I think they might be able to AA in between if they're like fast enough, but it's like you have to be kind of like be on the ball for that. Other pokes you have is like just AGA, ABAs, those are your highs. From range, you can use 668. This move goes really far and it kills backstep. So if you think the opponent's backstepping, like this move, the range is just deceptive. So you can do it from like it's basically like a long range poke. It is a bit slow and it is high, so you have to be careful with that. After this move, if you press forward, you go into Nightmare's Grim Stride. Then right here in Grim Stride, you end up going into that crouching stance, and then you can like kind of go for a crouch, a mix up from crouch. So, I mean, alright, so for another move that's similar to 6A, there's 6A. Alright, again, for this move, you can just do 6A, 6AA, 6A hold. So, generally, even just doing a normal 6A is fine. This move actually goes tremendously far for what is just simply a good move. I mean, it's not the fastest move, but it has a revenge property. So, again, you can absorb opponents' moves with this, so that kind of compensates for the slow speed, but its range is awesome. It's almost as far as, like, 6A. Like, this is one of Nightmare's farthest reaching moves. It can ring out from really far away also if you hit 6AA on the opponent. So, yeah, so this is just a good move. If you have the opponent that respecting your mids, like 3A, from mid-range, and you see the opponent's kind of moving around on it, you can occasionally try and sneak in 1A. Alright, a warning, yes, I know this is a slow track and low, but the main point of this is that this move does force the opponent to have to kind of watch their ankles. But the main thing with Nightmare, again, is that, in general, and this probably applies to most characters, his mids are a lot more dangerous than his lows. 6-6B, 2-3-6B, 6-6A plus B, 2-2B, like 3B, BB. None of these moves you really want to get hit by. Like, so the opponent is essentially looking out to see if you might try and like catch him with like a 2-3-6B, and even like 6BB. So there's a bunch of really dangerous mids with Nightmare. So you can occasionally try and sneak in 6A. If you do get like a knockdown of like any sword, like I don't know, let's say you hit someone with BB. So then what you could do is you could do 1A, and if you charge it, you get this break attack, and then it's I think it's slight advantage on block. The opponent essentially has to jump in order to avoid it, and I think Nightmare actually has a answer to that with 1AK. Anytime the opponent is off balance during the neutral game for any reason, then you have a kind of a long range. It's not necessarily really poke per se, because it is really slow. This is 4A. This is essentially a good go-to break attack with Nightmare, so it's a pressure tool. It is advantage on block, and then when it connects, it does allow for a free 6/6 KK. And then you get this move right here, which ends up giving you your terror charge. That same hit throw with 6 KK. All right, so yeah, 4A is a great. This is basically your go-to kind of break attack on the opponent's block to complement A plus B. A plus B right here is a vertical. It's a vertical mid that ends up leading into Knight behind stance. So this one can hit grounded. It does a tremendous amount of damage when it hits, and you see it launches also when it hits. So this is your grounded vertical mid. Of course, being a mid, it can be sidestep. So 4A is it's a tracking move, so the opponent can't sidestep. They need to crouch it or beat it outright. So I mean, with its range, you can kind of use it from a bit like further out. I mean, if you use it in close, then if you're using it in close, you have to make sure that the opponent's on the defensive, or they're just gonna just hit you out of it with like a 2K or something like that. But yeah, when the move does hit or block, it is great. I'm not sure if I went over 6KK before, but that move is also good. I think it might have some high crush properties. I mean, it's around at about 16 frames, or maybe slightly slower than that. So I know it's definitely slower than the 14 frame 3K. So with this move this move is linear, but the second hit is a track and high. So that's a track and high, so the opponent has to duck the second hit. If you always mash this move out, the opponent will duck the second hit. So that's why you have this is 6KB. So like this move right here is good for kind of, you can just do a single K sometimes, but this move is good for keeping the opponent in check, for telling them like don't crouch. So I mean, if you're afraid you're gonna crouch it, then you could just use this one instead. Nightmare's whiff punishment can be like pretty devastating. I'll just say straight up, you're fighting Nightmare, just like, well, don't whiff. That's another reason also why Nightmare likes fighting around like mid long range. Like Nightmare has a good backstep, so that means he's good at making people whiff. So if you're fighting around this range, Nightmare can like still easily like attack you. I already showed you that 6BB is a decent whiff punisher, but you also have 6-6B. This right here could give you your terror charge, or you can even do like 6-6B, then press forward, Grimstride B, and then right there, and then you still have you're behind the opponent, but you still like create a bit of space. You also have, of course, 2-3-6B. So with this, you press forward, you go into Grimstride, and you can basically keep doing it. 1, 2, and then another one, and now you're in front of your opponent in Grimstride. So then, because it's a knockdown, you would end up having an advantage over them, and then Grimstride leaves you in crouch, so you get like kind of a crouch mix-up. But I'll go over the kind of mixed-up stuff like a little later. But yeah, as for like other whiff punishers, of course, there's also 6-6A, 3B. All right, so for 3B, if you hit at tip range, you see right here, it just knocks down, and then the opponent just kind of like just falls over. But if you do it in close, then you can end up doing 3B. Then you do what you do is a BA slide. I'll tell you, it's a much easier just frame than the AGA or ABA. Like right here, just slide, just do a slide right there. From B to A, it's a lot easier. It's not a double flick. So I mean, that's tremendous damage for that 3B whiff punish. With regards to punishment with Nightmare, I'll just say straight up, his standard punishment and block punishment just kind of sucks. With most punishment, you're either going to do like a K, 6K, there's also like 6K, 3K. So basically any of his cheap little pokes is basically, this is 6K is pretty much his go-to punishment. This is his 16 frame punishment, this is his 13 frame punishment, this is his 14 frame punishment, so you don't really have much to work with. Although his Punisher from Crouch is pretty good. I think this move comes out in about either 15 or 16 frames, which is, for Nightmare, that's pretty damn fast. So essentially, this is Wall Rise and B. So what you do is, that's just Wall Rise and B. If that version ends up connecting on counter hit, then you get a free 2A plus B. So you have to kind of like keep that in mind, whether that's going to hit on counter hit or not. If it doesn't, if you suspect the move will not connect on counter hit, then you hold it down, and you go into Knight side stance. So same as 3B. Do the same thing. The BA slide, and right there, and just end up just smacking the opponent away. Which that move can wall slam or ring out quite easily also. And if you need a faster while rising punishment because 16 frames is too slow, you have your little headbutt. 14 frames while standing. Okay, Nightmare has 4 primary stances that you're going to be utilizing throughout a match. Alright, the most common one is... Well, actually, all of them will be used like a fair bit, but like B plus K, so Knight low stance, Grim Stride right here, quarter circle forward, just simply quarter circle forward. All of these can be used, like there's also 6 B plus K goes into Knight behind stance. This one I probably utilize relatively less. I particularly like the Knight side stance, so 4 B plus K. The main reason why is because this move ends up, for instance, it ends up taking a step back, so it's almost kind of like a built-in back step, and there are some nice moves out of this. Alright, I'll just let you know that back in SoulCalibur 5, all Nightmare had was Grim Stride and Knight side stance. So out of Knight side stance, you have a particularly fast move. This is the K option, right here. This move comes out in 9 frames. Yes, it's a 9-frame move. In SoulCalibur, the very fastest AA moves, like Nightmares is like 18 frames, it's tremendously slow. But the fastest AAs would be like 10 frames, like Taki's, Cassandra's AA, or Zhanghua's AA, or like Amy's 6B. All those moves are 10 frames. This move is 9 frame. If it ends up connecting on counter hit, then you get a free 2A plus B right here. And now you got your terror charge. You get your souls. So that move. So that move is really good. Another good thing you also have out of here is the A option. This right here is a tracking. It's a tracking horizontal A, which has high crush properties. So this goes under highs. If you end up going into if you end up like just basically just going into the staying in like Knight side stance, then I think it's not necessarily unsafe on block on paper. Although yeah, you can't block in the stance. You have to exit out of the stance and block. So if any move that you do out of this gets blocked and you end up like going back into the Knight side stance, you do have to be like a little careful. The main thing to do is try and get the opponent to be scared of like the K option. So because this move is a high and it can intercept moves really easily, just to kick to the face. The moves that opponents are generally going to do to want to stuff that is like 2K or 2A. But the funny thing, for instance, is if you end up like going into this move from like a range, like under most circumstances when you end up going into this stance, for instance, 2A, a lot of times 2As will be kind of out of range because you need to be like point blank range in order for like a 2A to really hit you. Like some opponents might try and like 2K you, so those are kind of things to like keep to keep note of. Also, with regards to the stances, you could kind of transition into them. You could basically just transition into them pretty easily. See right here, they all kind of like transition into each other. You can even exit out of it into Grim Stride. So this is Knight side stance, Grim Stride. This is Knight on behind stance. You can go into Grim Stride. Alright, you can even go into Grim Stride out of Knight low stance. So yeah, so the stances can kind of like complement each other. So out of Knight side stance, for instance, if you want to end up going under an opponent's move, apart from like the high crush or the tech crouch properties of Knight side stance A, you could press 2 B plus K, and then you go into Knight low stance. Alright, with regards to Knight low stance, the B option is just tremendously good, so this is always your go-to. I actually want the opponent to make the opponent kind of afraid to get hit by that move, or just kind of fear that move in general. If you want a horizontal move out of that, then it's just the A option. Right here, this move is, it's your horizontal low. If you hold down the A, then you end up transitioning into Knight side stance right here. Okay, I'll just let you know in your stances you can't really move very fast and you can't block, so that is, right now, I'll actually say, is kind of the challenge playing with a Nightmare, is that, his stances can leave him in a bad spot if you end up not transitioning into them safely. And for some more good moves out of these stances, or just continue on with the Knight Low stance, the K option is good right there. So, I mean, basically the A option is just simply a poke. The B option, well, is also a poke, but it's also a dangerous mid. And the K option, this is mainly like an interrupt. Under most circumstances, kicks will be interrupts. So out of Knight behind stance, your kick is your interrupt. So your B option is kind of like your your getaway move. And your A is also, well, tracking low, similar to Knight Low stance. If you hold it down, you'll end up going into the Knight Side stance, so that, I mean, there's a transition. Alright, now just some more stuff with regards to Knight behind stance. Your mid option, your B option, right here ends up launching the opponent, and then you can get a free 2A plus B, so you get some souls out of that. So that move is, so basically that is the dangerous mid that the opponent is gonna kind of worry themselves with the most. Alright, so if you want to try and kind of like mix up the opponents or anything like that, or kind of just keep I don't know, I want to say keep the opponent like guessing. Basically, if you want to just go into if you want to put yourself in the position to try and get your mix-ups going, then that's where you can kind of like use Grim Stride. So that's what I mean by it's kind of like a pseudo approach move, because the opponent has to, number one, they don't want to get hit by the actual moves like out of it. For instance, like with regards to Grim Stride, you have a really good tracking high here with Grim Stride A. This is a GI, and it's tracking, and if it ends up hitting the opponent on counter hit, yeah, you see right here, if you end up like hitting the opponent on counter hit, then you get like a spin stun, then you can like get in like a K after, like a punch the opponent. So I mean, yeah, this move is just really good. Its weakness is that it's a high. It is unsafe on block. 236B is also unsafe on block, but it basically keeps Nightmare doesn't really step forward that much, so it kind of keeps him back a bit. And the K option is like, well, it's kind of unsafe. You only kind of use that when you're certain it's gonna hit. But yeah, but the main thing with Grim Stride is use it to set up your crouch moves. So when right here, you can use like while rising AA, or just simply while rising A, hold down the A, you go into Knight Side stance, and you do a double mid-low. I'll let you know that move is basically kind of a gimmick. So I mean, if the opponent knows the second hit's a low, they will block you for that. So out here, if you think the opponent's gonna do a high or do a slow move, then you just smack them with a while rising B. If you want an interrupt, then that's where your 14 frame headbutt comes in. But the main thing about which kind of like augments Nightmare's mix up a bit from this going into this stance, you could also transition into a Knight Low stance, is Nightmare has low throws. These are the flapjacks. So from crouch, just simply 3 A plus G, or 1 A plus G, and there's the overtoss flapjack. These moves are what the opponent has to watch out for. They can break it with either A plus G, or I mean with like either like any button, like A or like back A. So it's like a typical throw break, but they also can crouch block them. So you do have to try and keep the opponent on their toes with this. I mean, usually what you want to do is maybe try and intercept them, but again, even from here though, if the opponent does anything kind of slow or goes for a high, then hit him with the Knight Low stance B, for instance. With regards to Nightmare's stance transition, I'll just let you know that he has kind of a lot of them, so I'll just point out some kind of common ones. Alright, there's usually a lot of ways to go into Grim Stride. For a move that leads into Grim Stride, for instance like 66K, you just simply hold forward and then you go into Grim Stride. It's the exact same Grim Stride as doing quarter circle B. So with regards to 66K, as a poke, just do 66K. If the move gets blocked, then you're leaving yourself kind of in a risky position if you end up, well, doing anything. I mean, because the thing, the opponent can interrupt Grim Stride by just doing like a fast poke, or like a 2K or something, or a 2A, for instance. So I mean, if you're doing this, you're either going to just simply stop and like guard, or go for the A option. The A option's a GI, so it'll beat out like most stand-in moves. So I mean, that's what I mean. That is the move the opponent has to kind of like watch out for, and that forces them to have to either just stand there and just block it, or kind of crouch, which can occasionally open them up to a 236B if they're not careful. But yeah, but for other Grim Stride transitions, 66A, hold, you go into it. 66, well, yeah, 6-6B, 2-3-6B. See if there's any other kind of transitions. AA hold. So there might be some others. Like I already showed you. Yeah, any of the stances, just do quarter circle forward. You'll transition into Grimstride. And again, if you're knight side stance, sometimes exiting out into Grimstride is not such a bad idea. All right. As for transition into other stance, for instance, 3B, hold it down. You go into knight side stance. For one more for Grimstride. For 2-2 AA, there's a 2-2 AA that is well, unsafe on block if it ends up getting blocked. So what you can do is just do a single 2-2 A. So that means like sidestep A or press forward. Or so 2-2 AA forward. Then you go into Grimstride. So the resist right here, if the opponent's expecting you to do this move, then again that's where the mix-up goes. Like that's the one way how Nightmare is. I wouldn't necessarily say keep them safe, but keeps the opponent on their toes and can make them hesitate, kind of straight up punishing. Because if the opponent's just kind of tanking you and just simply just blocking stuff, then you have to kind of go into your transitions to keep the opponent off balance. 2-2 AA forward is a fairly common one. 3B, this one's weird because whether you do 3B, 3B, so if you just do a normal 3B, this move's pretty considerably unsafe on block. You can get launched that gets blocked. If you do this, it's actually not as negative, but you also can't block in this stance. So on the bright side, you likely won't get launch punished for doing this, but then the opponent can still kind of like poke you out of it because again, I mean, if they block this, then they have to be careful that you can just still, if they don't do a fast retaliation, you'll just kick them in the face. But again, that is something to just keep in mind if 3B hold gets blocked. Other moves like 1A can also transition into Grimstride. If this move gets blocked, like don't transition into Grimstride. If this move gets blocked, for instance, at like tip range or anything like that, then just simply just do it. And if you do the held version, there's no transition. It just gets blocked. Because if you end up getting this move blocked and you go into Grimstride, then you're basically just asking for the opponent to smack you. So just only if the move hits, like if you end up getting like a lethal hit with that move, then it will allow you to get a free follow-up, so it will allow you to combo. Otherwise, it's basically just trips the opponent. So I know in previous SoulCaliburs, you can actually get a combo right here with like a 1A into like Grimstride B. But yeah, for this one though, like just like with most transitions, they're actually generally not good on block. So, but if you do hit the opponent, then yeah, then you usually are free to transition. As for transitions like, let's say Knight Low Stance, this one is usually fine to just simply enter into it. Because it puts you into a crouching stance if the opponent like runs at you or does something like reckless, and you can just smack them with like the B option. With Knight Side Stance, they're watching out for the K or the BA slide, so if they run at you, just smack them with this. Though if the opponent has like a good range with Punisher, then they will, if you just do this freely, they will if they have a with Punisher that can reach you, they will utilize it on you. Nightmare's guard gauge harassment game is good. Alright, let's see. So if you're fighting at mid-range where you should be, just harass the opponent with B plus KB. See, this runs up the gauge like really well. It's a safe poke. And also for other like relatively safe pokes, you have if I can space it right, you have 2-3-6-B. So this move, whether you do it like just a raw 2-3-6-B, or let's say for instance 2-2-A or 2-2-AA Grimstride B, you're safe right here. So and then it runs up the gauge like really well. Of course, if you do that predictably, then the opponent will kind of like hit you in between it. So sometimes you have to just do like a single 2-2-A. It runs up the gauge like runs it up like K-ish. But yeah, I mean 2-2-A is a pretty decent move. Alright though, so let's say anytime you have the opponent on the defensive, especially like for instance after wake up and not really like tech rolling or anything, this move is just a really good move for harassing people like during Okazemi on wake up. Because obviously if they get hit by that move, they're getting launched, but if they block it, this move does a tremendous amount of guard gauge damage. So you right there, as you see, you end up getting flashing. So, but yeah. I mean, along with like 6-6-A plus B, naturally with regards, right, in general, for running the guard gauge with Nightmare, you want moves that do like good guard gauge damage, and of course are either safe or advantage and are not like easily punished. For instance, I mean his break attacks are good. Like A plus B is good. Just take note though that it does go into always goes into Knight behind stance, so you might have to try and keep the opponent in check with like your knees with your K option. Alright, so, and of course your other break attack 4A. So this move right here, this is a great like go-to break attack along with A plus B. Both of them run up the gauge well along with like your 6/6 A plus B. Alright, a move I forgot to mention in the last section, BB4. You see right here, it does a little sidestep. You go into Knight Behind stance. This move is good because doing a normal BB. Alright, this does a lot of guard gauge damage, but this is really unsafe. The opponent can step after the first hit. From crouch, along with while rising, with Knight Low Stance B, you also have while rising B is good, and full crouch 3B is actually surprisingly good. It does good guard gauge damage, and it's actually advantage on block, whereas while rising B is just, well, simply safe. AGA and ABA also do okay-ish guard gauge damage, and of course they're neutral on blocks, so I mean, not really much downside to just chucking these moves out once in a while. Under Terra Charge, of course you get access to your standard Soul Charge moves. I'll just let you know right now, 6 BBB. This is a great move for guard gauge harassment. And of course, if you have like an opening and usually like on the opponent's like wake up, quarter circle, A plus B is great whether it hits the opponent or it gets blocked. Lots of chip damage, lots of guard gauge damage. And as I mentioned earlier, 6/6 KK is also really good and does a tremendous amount of guard gauge damage. An interesting move with Nightmare is his 4BB. Alright, this move I'll let you know has like great range, but it is also tremendously slow. Like it's about like 34 frames. Like that's incredibly slow. So if the opponent whiffs something like really big in front of you, then you can like kind of whiff punish with like 4BB. Like this reaches really far. The interesting thing about this move is, aside from the fact that it's like does like tremendous damage and has the ability to transition to Knight side stance after a launch, it also does like, for instance, a tremendous amount of guard gauge damage, and it also is advantage. For instance, if you just do the move normally, then that leaves you at +2. But if you do the Knight side stance, just hold down the second B. Let me just get this right. Right here, then you'll be at +6. So basically, like any of your options out of here will beat out pretty much almost any response that the opponent would do. As for actually breaking the guard gauge with Nightmare, 6BB is good. Right here, you can just follow it with 3B, then do the BA slide. You can also use 236B. Alright, if the gauge is flashing red, you're pretty likely gonna break the guard gauge with 236B. So just hold forward and just do Grimstrike B to your heart's content. Then you can even, like, as you can see right there, the opponent, if you do go for the low mix-up, they can get blocked. But yeah, other moves you can use is like if you were, for instance, to do that same move. So let's say 2-2-AA forward B. All right, you can you can do the same thing. You can break the guard gauge with that, but be careful that the opponent may try and GI you if they see what you're trying to do. All right, so but yeah, I mean you always have to be careful of GIs. All right, other moves you can use to break the guard with is like 6/6 A plus B is good. Break attacks like 4A is good. 3B is okay, even though with 3B, I mean you can't really like do that much off it, and you also have to be careful with scaling. So breaking with 3B isn't really as good an idea. I mean, like let's see. So B plus A B is also good for breaking the guard gauge. Anything that can allow you to just do your 3B combo right there is usually a good go-to. Nightmare's throw game is pretty decent. Like it's not necessarily spectacular or anything, but it's reasonably solid. The main distinguishing feature about Nightmare's throw game is because he has a big ass arm, he tends to get big ass throw range. As for the throws themselves, they're pretty average. Like for instance, here's Nightmare's A plus G throw. Does 55 damage, keeps the opponent close by, just like close to you. For his back A plus G throw, right here also does 55 damage, but this also allows you to reverse ring out. So this throw can wall slam and can ring out. So anytime Nightmare has his back to the ring edge and threaten the opponent with a back A plus G throw. Alright, and for Nightmare's right side throw, pretty standard throw, and gives you 60 damage, which is pretty solid. But Nightmare's left side throw, see, this throw has the ability to kind of ring out around well, just basically when you end up doing this throw, it has the ability to kind of like ring out to this kind of the behind side. I know it's a little hard to it's a little hard to describe. Nightmare's back throw does like pretty standard damage. Just does 70 damage, leaves the opponent right there, so it's like, well, pretty standard. Alright, a couple other unique throws for Nightmare, of course, is, well, I guess unique to both Nightmare and Siegfried are the flapjacks. The main purpose of the flapjacks is to make sure that the opponents are just basically checking their ankles, because of course, when you get the opponent backed into a corner, then of course flapjacks could be incredibly dangerous. If the opponent has their back to the ring edge, they should be breaking A, and if Nightmare has his back to the ring edge, then the opponent should be breaking B, or that will happen. New to Season 2, Nightmare basically got a new throw, which is the quarter circle forward A plus G right here. It only hits some crouching opponents. It can be done as basically quarter circle forward A plus G, or basically like during any Grim Stride, and you basically get this throw here, and what it does is it basically gives Nightmare, it blasts the opponent away, gives Nightmare Terror Charge. So it's pretty neat for opponents, I guess, that are, going to be crouching after, after you like go into your Grim Stride. So you have this, so you basically have that, throw right here. Be careful. A lot of times what happens is you may try and go for a Grim Stride step, then do this move. But if you end up going for the A plus G throw too early, then you end up getting like this instead. And of course, if the opponent's already crouching, then they can easily end up like crouch blocking a flapjack, for instance. Also, this throw cannot be grapple broken, so you cannot break it at all. Naturally, dealing with Nightmare at the wall is like very scary. I mean, if the opponent has their back to the wall, I mean, against a Nightmare, they should just be scared shitless. Alright, I'll let you know right now that the main thing is kind of scary about Nightmare is just the fact that after Nightmare gets a knockdown after like anything, then it's just scary, because of course stuff like 668 plus B can be like pretty scary. I mean, there again, the opponent has to end up side rolling or whatever to be able to avoid it. 236B, like all these moves hit hard. They end up like launching you. Of course, you don't want to get smacked by like AGA or ABA, but yeah, with regards to actually like wall slamming the opponent, like 6K is really good right here. This is just like your go-to punch to the face. Your normal K doesn't, but if you were to, for instance, connect it on counter hit, and right there, then it will wall slam. But generally, if you want, I mean, you see 6K wall slams on normal hit, so it's better. 66K is also good, so you have 6K, 66K, so a couple of those moves are good. You can wall slam also with 6BB, so like any of those options are quite good. And also, if you want like your go-to tracking move, you could do like 66AA at the corner. So like, let's take a look at Nightmare's Soul Charge. Alright, Nightmare's Soul attacks with 236 A plus B plus K. Alright, it does tremendous, well, it obviously puts Nightmare into Soul Charge. It has tremendous range. You can also perform it out of Grim Stride. Although, I don't really recommend doing it out of Grim Stride. I mean, you get a slightly more range, but if you end up doing the A plus B plus K too late, you may end up getting the critical edge instead, which may not necessarily be favorable. Especially, of course, if the opponent was just like kind of standing there guarding, then you will get sidestepped and punished for doing that instead. So just simply use the 236 A plus B plus K version, because the range is pretty tremendous. The range is pretty tremendous regardless. I mean, that goes like really far. I'm not going to go over all of Nightmare's Soul Charge moves, because quite frankly, he ends up having like, well, too many moves. But I'll just say in general that Nightmare's Soul Charge is used to augment a more kind of a rush down playstyle if you like so desire, since there are quite a bit of break attack like moves. But the main thing to kind of keep in mind also with the Soul Charge is a common thing also, aside from being able, you can be like slightly more aggressive, is that you can use it for instance to try and augment more damage off of moves there. Like for instance, this move right here, so out of Knight's side stance, so the BA slide, add an additional B, and look how much you get tremendous damage. As that has been implied earlier, all of Nightmare's moves out of Soul Charge are the same as the moves, out of Terror Charge, so it's basically just interchangeable, it's the same things. Alright, so your go-to move out of Terror Charge or Soul Charge, of course, is your 66 BBB. This is your awesome whiff punisher. You can even use it as block pressure. Essentially, it's a long-range linear move. So essentially, the only way how the opponent's really going to avoid this, aside from being on the other side of the screen, is they're going to have to try and sidestep the drill. So essentially, if the opponent's sidestepping quite a bit, they can leave themselves open to like 6A or 66AA. And the nice thing that's neat is because Nightmare's just engulfed in a crazy amount of red flames right now, it kind of initially hides the fact that this move is a revenge move. So I mean, this move can almost just look like a typical kind of like a 668 kind of move, or kind of like a AGA type move. So when the opponent's just looking at this like huge amount of flames, you can almost kind of mask the fact that this is a revenge move, since it's just so much red. So I mean, yeah, it's the same move, but under all this red though, the initial visual cue is kind of camouflaged. For guard pressure, 6-6 KK is good, and 236 A plus B is good. Similar to 6-6 KK, you can also occasionally sneak in 236 KK. Alright, this one is a slightly bit of a gimmick just because the opponent can easily duck the second hit, but of course it's advantage if it gets blocked. It ends up giving you the hit throw if it ends up connecting. Nightmare's 6-6 BB is an interesting move. Normally 6-6 B is used as kind of a ranged whiff punisher slash intercept. So after you end up hitting this move, you do like 2A plus B, you get your terror charge. But if you're already under soul charge, you get a second hit in 6-6 BB. You can launch the opponent, and then you can try and fault with like an AGA. Like so. Another choice that you can implement into your playstyle with regards to terror charge is what you can do is maybe just focus on just simply holding on to terror charge. For instance, once you got the opponent respecting, for instance, 6-6 BBB, you see that after you use a terror charge move, you've expended your terror charge. So the only way to get it back is to do more moves that do terror charge, or to end up using your soul charge. So what I mean by this is you could basically just kind of like use your, just fight normally this, and if the opponent gives you like an opportunity to hit with a terror charge move, then like go for it. But otherwise, just simply having this will make the opponent more weary. And again, you have the choices to be able to, it's just to try and keep the opponent kind of like weary of things, and then you can basically they're gonna want to be more defensive, because they're not gonna, obviously they're gonna be like kind of afraid of what kind of terror you can kind of like unlock on them. So with that, I mean, you could choose to just try and like poke them out and all of that, but really that is quite frankly your choice, because Nightmare CE it's basically a defensive style CE. What it is it's both kind of a revenge attack, so similar to like Soul Wave, and it also has the ability to GI like highs or mids. In general, the moves that beat out the revenge effects of like a Soul Wave are the same type of moves that like would beat out the critical edge, for instance. So that would mean lows and throws, for instance, can beat it. With regards to the critical edge, the general way how the opponent will avoid it is by sidestepping. So essentially, your punishment for chucking this move out is getting sidestep and launch punishment. That's very similar to like how you'd punish a reversal edge, for instance. All right, a neat perk about the critical edge is that if you're certain that you're basically going to absorb a move, so like let's say your opponent's on the buttons, they're pushing buttons, then what you can actually do is hold it down and you fully charge it. Any moves that the opponent will do to you that is not a low or throw will get absorbed, and then if you fully charge it, it will become unblockable. So if the opponent does a quick poke and let's say they're able to block again, then what will happen is that you can do the fully charged version, and then you actually get more damage than a normal critical edge. For instance, this one ends up doing 110 damage, and a normal one ends up dealing like a little less. I think about 80-ish damage. So it does 80 damage. Either one is pretty good though, but if the opponent is slow to be able to sidestep or off balance, or if you're certain that you kind of absorb the move, then holding it down fully is fine, but occasionally you can end up doing different times on it to throw off the opponent. Take note that if the uncharged version gets blocked, you will be left at -20. Oh, check this out with regards to Nightmare's 4-4 KK. This move is normally a break attack that's a high and ends up whiffing on the crouching opponent. But check this out. Alright guys, I'd like to thank you for joining me on this journey of reaping souls with the Azure Nightmare. But yeah, I'd like to once again thank Smart Esports and Trollcoin for endorsing this video. And as always, if you like this video, smash that like button. If you didn't like this video, just hit the like button even harder. And don't forget to subscribe for more juicy 3D fighter content. Alright, I'll just let you know that I have guides now for basically almost half of the SoulCalibur 6 roster, so that's pretty cool. I also would like to take this moment to thank my premium top tier fighters for their continued support, which of course I do appreciate. If you'd like to become a premium top tier fighter yourself, click on the Patreon link down below. If you have any further questions, feel free to contact me on my YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. You can also contact Force Nature on 8-Way Run. Anyways, this is Force Nature signing off. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time on Top Tier Tips.